Welcome to episode 66 of Everything Sports with Aman and Evan. I'm your host, Aman Karni,
And I'm your co-host, Evan Garber.
and we talk about the hottest topics in sports over the course of the past week. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the NFL playoff picture as the last set of games are being played today. And then we're going to move into hot takes and then react to the NBA All-Star fan voting, round one, I should say, and then pretty much give our take on players who might get snubbed from the All Star game because every year there are snubs. But before we start, make sure to follow us on all social media platforms you see on screen. And as you can see, there will be holiday themed overlays for our podcast episodes. But follow us on YouTube, TikTok. We're literally posting every day. We've gotten so much love so far on the short, so we're keeping it going. So follow us on all social media platforms. But without further ado, let's get it started with the NFL. And before we start, the news on Damar Hamlin, we'll just touch on that a little bit. Obviously, we all know what happened at this point. He suffered a cardiac arrest in the middle of the game. But now he's talking with the team on FaceTime, posting on social media. So it's great to see that he's doing well because you never want to see that in sports. And honestly, I don't know how I'm going to watch the NFL the same way as I did before the injury because stuff like that just reminds you how dangerous the sport is and how fragile life can be because he really well could have lost his life. So, what is your reaction to everything?
Yeah, it really was just really scary moment. I wasn't even watching the game, if I'm being honest, and I just look up at the screen, I just see everything's happening. I'm just like, what can be going wrong? And it's not something you really think about when you're watching the game of football. Like deep down, you know it's gonna happen. It's bound to happen. It's such a rough sport. But when you see something like that, it's just so crazy to see, and it really hurts you. But it's really cool to see everyone come together, and it's a really special moment to see, and I'm glad he's doing well now.
Yeah, and I mean, NFL is honoring him with shirts, the pre-game announcement, the Buffalo Bills blue or red on the 30-yard line, and many other gestures. So that's great to see. But as for the NFL playoff picture, so as a result, the Bills Bengals game was canceled. So I believe the Bills are the 2 seed. The Chiefs have clinched the 1 seed with their win over the Raiders yesterday on Saturday. And so the Bills, if they win, and then pretty much if it's the Bengals Ravens, then it's a coin toss to determine who gets the home stadium, which I mean, there are better ways to do it than just a simple coin toss. But I mean, the Bengals have been vocal about them being affected the most and it benefits the Ravens. And I mean, I get that, but I just don't know how they would have resumed that game given what happened, to be honest. So it is what it is for the Bengals, but I do feel like the Bengals, everyone knows there's a really good football team. Their receivers are amazing, quarterback amazing, running back amazing, defense pretty good. So the Bengals, I feel like obviously they want their home field to play on their home turf, but I feel like they're going to make it out no matter what. And so we'll see what happens with the AFC Championship game because if the Bills and Bengals are in it, then it will be played on a neutral field, which could be big because we know how loud the Arrowhead Stadium gets. So we'll see what happens if it's a Bengals Chiefs, Bengals, um, any other team that includes the Bills and Bengals versus any other team. It's going to be at a neutral stadium. So, given that information, what is your reaction to, I mean, Bills? I think they'll probably get the 2 seed because I'm pretty sure Bengals, they're at the 3 seed right now. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The Bills just have to win today. I'm pretty sure to lock into that 2 seed. I think that will happen. Um, it's honestly just a really interesting situation to think about. Like you said, there could have been better ways to deal with it. I think that they should have just based it on like stats like they usually do for tiebreakers, but they decided not to do that way, which is I guess would be fine. I mean, it shouldn't make a huge difference, but at the same time, it probably will make a huge difference. I mean, the crowd behind having a crowd behind you is just a really, really motivating thing. I guess you can say it's really motivating for the players, and it really like turns you up. I mean, it happens in the Niners. Like the Niners, when they're in their home stadium, the crowd goes wild. They're always behind them, and they're just such an insane team at home, even on the road too. But they're so much better at home. And one thing I want to talk about is like the Jaguars. That game yesterday on Saturday, just honestly just very very weird. I didn't think it was going to end up that way, and I do think that no matter who they play, they're going to lose that game. I just don't see them winning, especially against the Chargers. I mean, Chargers are such a good team, and I think that they definitely could make a huge run. The Chargers, because they've been injured for such a long time. They've had so many key injuries. They've had Joey Bosa. They've had Keenan Allen. They've had Mike Williams injured. I mean, there's so many players on that team that have gotten injured, but now they're all healthy and they could make a huge run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The Jaguars, if they're playing the Chargers, they could very well maybe upset a team, but I do feel like no matter who plays them, it's that team that beat the Jaguars. They're gonna make it out. I feel like relatively easily. The Jaguars are the 4 seed. As of now, it's the Jaguars versus the Chargers. And for that last spot in the AFC, if the Patriots win, they're in. And I believe Dolphins, I'm just scrolling down this list here. The Dolphins do need some outcomes to happen for them to make the playoffs. And this is big because we have to look at Tua's concussion problems because it's the safety of the player at this point, and I believe this is his third concussion this season, and there are a lot of concussions that happen in an NFL season, but for the third concussion for an NFL player in one season is kind of scary. It's kind of scary. So the Dolphins, they would obviously need to win to get into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens with Tua. And I know playoff spot is on the line, but I'm not sure if you play Tua even if they make it to the playoffs. Because again, Tua is a young QB. He's a young star in this league. Don't get me wrong, but it comes down to the health of the player. If you want Tua healthy long term, then I don't think you play him, even if the Dolphins do make the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I honestly understand that you're trying to do everything you can to win. I mean, it's sports. That's your number one goal is to win football games or to win whatever games, win a championship. But when it comes at the cost of a player, especially a young player like Tua, who has so much upside, I mean, he's looking great before the first concussion happened. I just think you have to be very, very cautious, like no matter what. You can't just put him out there just because you want to win. You have to make sure that he is fully healthy, that he can for sure play, and for sure is safe enough from another head injury happening, which is what happened now. I mean, he's gotten time and time again another head injury, and eventually it's gonna be pretty serious. I feel like. I mean, you can only take so many blows to the head before it becomes a very, very, very big issue. Another thing I want to talk about is also the Ravens. Their quarterback situation is also very weird too because this week Lamar is out again, and we don't know his status into the playoffs. And if they have to go in with Tyler Huntley or the backup quarterback, the third string quarterback, I mean, I don't think they're going to make it out. I mean, the defense is kind of stacked though, so they could rally behind the defense, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see them making it out with Huntley or the backup quarterback.
I agree. I think Lamar Jackson is absolutely important for their success. Lightly touch on Pittsburgh before moving to the NFC. They would need a Patriots loss, who they are playing the Bills, and then the Dolphins lost to the Jets. Both can happen, but the Steelers will need to beat the Browns, and the Browns are eliminated from playoff contention without their first round pick. So, I mean, I told you before the call, like, yes, the Steelers have decent to good players. Najee Harris has kind of rebounded, but Mike Tomlin is such a brilliant head coach. Like, if he loses and gets to 8-9, that's his first season being under 500. If he gets to 9-8 and still misses the playoffs, he still hasn't had a season lower than 9-8 or lower than 500, which is, I mean, crazy to think about considering how long he has coached. So we will quickly move on to the NFC. Most teams have, of course, clinched their spots. And what is your reaction? Because if the Eagles lose and the Niners win, the Niners get the 1 seed. We see the Niners shirt you're wearing right now. Obviously, you guys know what fans we are. And so the Eagles, Niners, Vikings, Buccaneers, Dallas, the Giants have all clinched a playoff berth. The Giants are locked in at the 6th seed, and we know how stacked the NFC East is all of a sudden. If the Eagles lose and the Niners and Cowboys win, the Niners would get the 1 seed, and the Cowboys would jump to the 2 seed, I believe. The 2 or 3 seed, depending on the Vikings' outcome, but the Eagles would drop to the 5 seed. And so now we go to the 7 seed. If the Packers win, they're in the playoffs. They are playing the Lions. And as for the Seahawks and Lions, they would need help from other teams to win. And as much as I want to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, I would just love for Detroit to make it in for the first time in a while, because Dan Campbell, like, I see his episodes on Pat McAfee's show, it's just, he's such a funny guy. He's such a great guy. So, and what it would mean for Detroit too, as well, I would want them to make it. But what needs to happen for them is, so let's talk about the Seahawks first. The Seahawks need to win, and then they would need the Lions to beat the Packers on Sunday night, and the Rams are out, as we know. So the Lions would, of course, need to beat the Packers, and the Rams would need to beat the Seahawks. And for the Packers would just need to win. So what is your reaction to all that complicating stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's really fun to see that in the last game of the season we have so much on the line. But I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that Aaron Rodgers likely will make it, and that's really, really scary for whoever gets a 2 seed. I mean, the 1 seed is very, very important this year because you do not want to face Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, no matter who he has on his team. I mean, his team sure hasn't been that great. Doesn't have any like absolute studs on the team. Doesn't have Devontae Adams anymore. But still, it's Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. You do not want to face Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs because he will find a way to beat you because that's just who he is. And I really don't want to face that if I'm a Niners fan or Eagles fan or even Cowboys fan, like anyone. You do not want to face him because he will find a way to do it. That's just who he is. Same with Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady, the Bucks barely sneaked in because of their really, really weak division. You don't want to face him either because he's Tom Brady. He's gonna find a way to win. I mean, that's just really, really scary for any teams playing the Packers or the Bucks. I mean, they're just such good quarterbacks that you can never count them out.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, as for Brady and Rodgers, they their teams and their individual performances have been subpar this season, but one thing you don't want to do is underestimate the art of a champion. We saw this across numerous other sports. With the Warriors, everyone ruled them out last season and they still won the championship. And they're struggling this season, but if the Warriors are in the playoffs as a 4 or 5 seed this year, you don't want to see them in the playoffs. You can't underestimate the heart of a champion, because in any sports, when it's playoff time, you know who steps it up. When there's an inexperienced team versus a really experienced team, especially Rodgers won a Super Bowl. Brady's, we all know how many Super Bowls he has won, so you don't want to underestimate these guys. And it's not going to be such an easy prediction. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, this team's guaranteed shot to win. Like, I agree with what you said. Niners, my brother's also a diehard Niners fan. He keeps calling everything a guaranteed win, but at some point you gotta be real and say like the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, we saw what he did against the Cowboys. We know what he can do with his arm. Like multiple game-winning Hail Mary plays. So I feel like don't underestimate any opponent, especially if they have been there and done it before. So with that, that will wrap up our NFL playoff sort of reaction coverage, whatever you want to call it. Now we will go to hot takes, and my hot take I'll start off with will stay in the NFL. It's the Packers can win a round or two in the playoffs. I do believe that they may, if they, I do believe they might upset one. I'm not gonna pick it happening, but they might upset one, maybe one. What do you think?
I mean, we just talked about it. I mean, I definitely agree with you. It is going to be a very, very tough task because you are going up against the Cowboys, Niners, or Eagles, very likely. I mean, all three teams are very, very, very good, especially on the defensive end. All three teams have a very good defense, but I can definitely see it happening because, like I said, it is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is that guy in the playoffs. He will find a way to win. He'll find Christian Watson probably for like 10 touchdowns and they'll win. Actually 10, but he'll continue
Yeah,
to find his guys and they will find a way to win because that's just who they are. And especially the defense. The defense is still very, very solid and they will rally around that offense because Aaron Rodgers really is just that nice.
all right. And what are your hot takes?
I'm also going to stay in the NFL. I'm going to say that the Chargers can and honestly think that they honestly will win the Super Bowl because, like I said, they had so many injuries that the 5 seed doesn't look great for them, but they've had so many injuries. Joey Bosa, like I said, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, so many key injuries on that team. And now when you face a fully healthy team, that team is very, very, very scary. And I think that they definitely could at least get to the AFC Championship, if not win it all.
I do agree that their chances have been hindered by injuries, and don't forget they got gifted an All-Pro corner in J.C. Jackson at the start of the season before he got hurt. I don't know why, for the love of God, the Patriots didn't keep him, but like the Patriots keep finding great corners. I think it's just like a knack for them or something. But if he played, imagine where the Chargers would be. And I will say win is kind of a stretch, but I do believe they could be a sleeper team, win a round, maybe lose in the championship game, but I feel like if they do win in the wild card, the divisional round is as far as they're going this year. But I mean, people are going to overreact naturally because it is Justin Herbert, and people are like, he's never made the playoffs, but you have to know that Herbert's entire career, he's been throwing to like his wide receiver 10 and 11, is what it seems like. Most of his career, because Keenan Allen has gone down. And so my hot take is going to stay in the and not stay in the NFL. I mean, move out of the NFL to the NBA. And I my hot take is that Tyrese Halliburton is not an all-star. And I know that is obviously a huge stretch. He is on my all-star snub list, but I feel like it comes down to the name really, to be honest. Like you saw in the fan voting, I believe LaMelo Ball hasn't done enough whatsoever to get as many votes as he did. So in the end, it comes down to the name. So you're taking that into account. Halliburton, he was traded from Sacramento. He was committed to that rebuild. Halliburton's a fantastic playmaker. And I do think it's a stretch to say he's better than De'Aaron Fox. I do not believe that. I know some people do. I still believe De'Aaron Fox is better, but I think he might be snubbed. So, what is your take?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, if you look at the list, other than LaMelo Ball, all those guys, I would definitely take over Tyrese Halliburton. Even though Tyrese Halliburton is having a very, very good season. I mean, it's hard not to pick Kyrie, D. Mitch, James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, all those guys are having very, very, very good seasons. And when you have a young guy, Tyrese Halliburton, especially on a team like the Pacers, it's not very likely that he will make it because of the small market team, and his name isn't that big in the NBA so far. I think eventually his time will come, but I don't think it's now, even though he is having a very, very good season.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of voting. I do feel like it's sort of a popularity contest because, I mean, we're diehard Warriors fans. I'm not going to pretend and say that many people, to be honest, I thought Steph was going to be a reserve in the first fan voting, so it's somewhat of the name there because Steph has been injured for a month. He is coming back. I believe he's going to play at an All-Star level, Hall of Fame level, right when he comes back from injury. But where it's a popularity contest is LeBron leading the vote. Like, what are we doing here? Luka Doncic has been the best player in the Western Conference. And when this format was made, the best player from each conference would pick the team. So, I mean, it is sort of a popularity contest at this point. So, I mean, I guess we can just go straight into the NBA All-Star reaction. So, Evan, just start with start with the West, I guess, and just top 10 or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the top 10, I'm just going to state the obvious right here. I mean, why are there so many Golden State Warriors on the top 10 for each position? I mean, I'm not complaining as a Warrior fan, but we definitely do not deserve to have that many All Stars there. I mean, Andrew Wiggins, I mean, he's playing all right, but I wouldn't say he's an All Star, especially because of the injuries. Kevon Looney, I mean, he's Kevon Looney. He doesn't deserve to be an All Star. Jordan Poole is not there yet, I wouldn't say. I mean, Clay Thompson, you can argue about now because of how well he's been playing the past like 2 weeks or so. I can definitely see that happening. And Steph Curry also, he is an injury bug too, so it's hard to really judge the Warriors All Stars. But definitely Curry and Clay are the two that I would consider. I wouldn't consider anyone else, um, especially since we're barely the sixth seed or we're the sixth seed. I don't know where we are right now,
I think
but
we're at 9 right now.
gee, yeah, we fall in a nine seed, so I would not say we deserve to have that many All Stars whatsoever.
To be honest, I feel like Wiggins was doing really well before injury. I feel like if he just, I mean, he was cold against the Magic. Let's face it, the entire team was. Clay was a late scratch, but Wiggins, I feel like he will get back to that level. So I do agree with him. Clay could be an all-star again. Steph is going to be an all-star. But Poole and Looney, I definitely do not agree with. That's great. Fans are voting. Looney is obviously huge for the Warriors. We're not denying that. But all-star, like, come on. What are we doing here? So, I mean, I guess we can move on to the front court. So, do you agree with the front court voting so far?
I mean, I agree with the top four. I would say the top four makes sense. When you get to the bottom, toward the bottom of the list, like you look at Laurie Markkinen, I think he deserves to be a little bit higher because he has been balling out this season. He's been very, very good. I mean, been the All Star for that Jazz team. It's been very, very surprising this year, and I just think he deserves it a little bit more than Paul George. Even though Paul George is playing well, and I do think that he kind of does deserve it more than Andrew Wiggins, just because Andrew Wiggins is sort of the third-ish best player, second best player, I guess you can say. I don't really know, but I just don't think that Wiggins has played to the level that we expected him to have, especially higher than Laurie Markkinen. I think Laurie Markkinen definitely deserves way, way more love than he's getting.
Yeah, I feel like Markkinen will be voted in as a reserve using those two like positionless players. I do think Markkinen, Wiggins, they will make it both in the All-Star game, but I think Markkinen deserved more votes than Paul George and more votes than Wiggins, to be honest. Like, I think he just dropped like 48 or some insane stat like that the other day. So Markkinen definitely deserves more votes. He is on my snub list, but I do not think he would be snubbed. So I guess I can say the front court of the Eastern Conference, Kevin Durant leads the votes, then Giannis, then Embiid, then Tatum, then Butler, Siakam. Like, I don't know how he keeps getting continuously disrespected. Jimmy Butler, I mean, the Heat have had like a so-so season, but like Siakam should be over Butler, and I do agree with the top three front court because I know that's insanely hard to vote for, but I do agree with the fans that in that Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Embiid should be starting at Tatum's the reserve. So, what do you think about the front court in the East so far?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, but I also believe that Paolo Banchero deserves a lot more love. I'm another guy that's balling out on a not so good team. I mean, he's looking at the very very clear front runner for Rookie of the Year this season, and I mean having one of the best rookie seasons that we've ever seen. And I think that he definitely deserves to be an All Star. I don't think he'll make it though because of how stacked the front court is in the East. Sorry, but I think he definitely deserves a lot more love.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I do think he is having a great season. I wouldn't call him an all-star though. But as for the guards in the East, Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Jaylen Brown, Trae Young, just to name the top five. Trae Young has struggled. I do think DeMar DeRozan will be voted in as a reserve. Zach LaVine has been turning it on lately. James Harden, he's trailing Donovan Mitchell by a good margin. I do think Donovan Mitchell will be the starters because you dropped 71 points. That's just insane. Kyrie has been doing really well for the Nets ever since Nike dropped him. I will say I agree with the guards in the East. I will agree with that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I agree with guards in the East. I mean, obviously we talked about Halliburton and LaMelo Ball already, but other than that, I think it's a pretty good list. I mean, Derrick Rose is a little interesting, but not like he really matters at the very bottom of that list. I mean, they're probably not going to get in either way at the bottom of the list. So yeah, I think overall it's a very, very, very solid list, and I think that Kyrie D. Mitch are definitely the starters for
Yeah.
the East.
Yeah, and I mean my snub candidates, I will say Lauri Markkinen just because it would be his first time, and then I'll say Tyrese Halliburton just because it would be his first time. I will say Zach LaVine because he's turned it on lately, and De'Aaron Fox I believe is an all-star, but he could get snubbed because he's not on the fan voting somehow. And then Jalen Brunson, he's been having an all-star caliber season for the Knicks. He hasn't appeared on all-star voting for the fans either. He could be voted in as a reserves, but these snubs, I am very curious to see who gets voted in as reserves in the East for guards, because I do agree with the starters, but you get two guard spots guaranteed for the reserves and then two wild cards. So it's interesting to see which guards will make it in the East. So do you agree with the snub list or who are players you would add to the snub list?
You know, honestly, I honestly do agree with the list. I mean, I guess one you maybe you consider is Damian Lillard. Um, I mean, of course, we know he had the injury, but other than that, he's been balling out. But I just don't think that it'll be enough for him to make the All Star game.
Yeah. I mean he is averaging great numbers, but you got to look at the players like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Ja Morant. They have had a better season than Damian Lillard. So I mean, I guess Damian Lillard would make sense, but I feel like the guard play in the West has just been absolutely phenomenal because Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has to be an all-star. There's just absolutely no way he can be snubbed. No way. And I hope it doesn't happen because he's literally the fourth guard in fan voting. So Shea Gilgeous-Alexander should be an all-star. But that will wrap up episode 66 of Everything Sports with Aman and Evan. Thank you for tuning in this week of us reacting to All-Star, NFL, and our hot takes. Tune in next week or during this week for shorts.